Lost in Random: The Eternal Die is a top-down action roguelite. I'll admit I'm a bit late to this game. It came out roughly 3 weeks ago and a few of my bigger projects have kind of pushed this review down the line. So before we get into the review, I'd like to give you a disclaimer. I did receive a copy of this game for review purposes, although I do not believe that receiving this key will affect my review in any way. I always want to be fully transparent with my audience whenever I do get a free key, so you guys can make your own decisions on that. Lost in Random: The Eternal Die is kind of a sequel, probably more of a spin-off to the action-adventure game Lost in Random. As someone who has never played that game, I feel like the story of Eternal Die does stand on its own enough that I didn't need to have played the first game to understand it. That being said, it does feel like maybe the journey our main character, Alexandra, goes on would have been a bit more meaningful if I played the first game, because I'm pretty sure she was like one of, or maybe the main antagonist of the first game, just based off of context from this one. And the game is partially about redemption and making amends for this character. So even though I was able to kind of fill in the gaps via context, maybe the journey would have been more satisfying if I had experienced the story of the first game. The premise of this game is that we play as Alexandra, once a queen. She lost a battle and she has been imprisoned in the Black Dye, and it's her goal to get out. Throughout your runs, you will come across other characters that you recruit to join your little hub area, and throughout conversations with them and some other narration by Alexandra herself here and there, that's kind of how the story is told to us. And the story of the game is fine, I liked it. I feel like the setting and the fantasy world that has been created here is very unique. And while it feels like the progression, there isn't much of it in the story as a whole, the character development of Alexandra is done very well, which I don't think would have been nearly as affected if not for the standout voice acting performance of, well, really the whole cast, but specifically the voice actress of Alexandra, who absolutely knocks their performance out of the park. Alrighty, so let's move on to gameplay. This is your typical top-down action roguelike. There are 4 weapons to choose from and each have their typical light combo and a heavy attack. There is a dodge, we have a spell attack, and to round out the rest of our kit we can throw out our die companion, Fortune, who will do a certain amount of damage based on what number they roll when they land. Player controls feel very tight and tactile, combat feels smooth. Any damage I took felt like it was definitely my fault for the most part. There are certain enemies, mostly the later game bosses and especially the final boss of the game, where I do feel like they just have some bullshit unavoidable move. As of writing this, I actually haven't beaten the final boss yet. They have kicked my ass every time I've gotten there, although I'm kind of willing to admit this might be a skill issue on this one. So it has become a bit of a cliche to compare every game that looks like this to Hades, and yeah, there is a bit of that DNA in there. But this game feels like it is playing something closer to Ember Knights if I had to pick a game in this genre to compare to. If you have played that game, the upgrade system and the weapon system are very similar in this game. There are 2 permanent currencies that you collect throughout the game. One gives permanent upgrades to your character, the other unlocks weapons and permanent upgrades to the weapon. The character upgrades are pretty simple. You have about 10 or so of them that you can unlock over the course of the game, but each upgrade has a different variant to them, so it doesn't feel nearly as linear, and it helps you build out your character in a way that maybe suits your playstyle a bit more. Each of the 4 weapons you get can have a choice of 4 different enchantments on them, which can range from giving them elemental damage or changing how the weapon's heavy attack works. Again, if you've played Ember Knights, it is very similar to that. On the more unique side of things that this game has to offer is its run build system, where whenever you choose an upgrade, you need to put it on this grid. All of the upgrades have a certain color to them, and if you match 3 colors in a row, then it will make your passive stats stronger. Each stat corresponds to a certain color, so red being weapon damage, yellow being spell damage, etc, etc. This is a solid idea. I like that there is a little bit of strategy involved to not only deciding what upgrades you want, but if you're going to be able to make your character stronger by finding other upgrades that use the same colors. I definitely do feel like that there was room to expand on this system more, but as it is, I like it. I think maybe if the game was longer, it definitely would have needed that extra expansion, and it does feel like sometimes your build strength does come down to luck at the end of the day, which is on brand and like with the themes of this game. And look, most roguelike games do have that luck factor into builds anyway, so I'm not going to really dock many points for that. Music. So the music in this game is very well done. I kind of really just don't have much to say about it. Unfortunately, it wasn't that much of a standout to me, but I do think it complements the tone of the game very well. It definitely helps sell the cohesive package that this game is trying to sell, which kind of brings me to the art style of the game, which I really liked. You can see a lot of effort went into the detail in crafting the environments and the characters of this game. Not only does it look pretty good, but the character designs are all very varied. And yeah, the game has a very defined art style that goes into making Eternal Die's world feel very coherent, I guess is the term I'm kind of looking for. Nothing feels out of place and everything looks like it belongs in the world, and it looks good. And not only that, it runs like an absolute dream. I don't think I experienced one bit of frame drop or slowdown the entire time I played this game. I experienced one bug that made the game kind of unresponsive, which meant I had to Alt F4 to close the game. But when I relaunched the game, it put me in the end of the last encounter I was in, which led to about maybe a minute of lost time, which, you know, I'm not going to complain about. You can just jump in and out whenever you like on this game, which is good because the runs do feel like they can go up to about an hour or so if you're getting a good run out of it. This game is also verified for Steam Deck, and I gave it a shot, and again, it runs like a dream. I found myself enjoying, you know, the small screen experience. You know, there are like some games that feel like they would work well with that small screen and they don't. Well, yeah, this game isn't one of them. The game is well optimized and just built very solidly. Lost in Random, The Eternal Die has a lot of good things going for it. There are interesting systems at play, a well-written and well-acted story, good music, maybe not great music, good combat mechanics, just in general an extremely competently made video game with a ton of skill and effort put into it. And if you are looking for a solid roguelike game, this is absolutely worth taking a look at because everything this game has to offer is of a solid quality. I think this is a really good game. You know, I like it, but if I had to say something negative about this game as a whole is that I don't love it. You know, Lost in Random Eternal Die is by all means a game that has very few problems, but on the flip side has very few things about it that really kind of stick out to me. Apart from maybe the voice acting. I think the voice acting is top notch. This may feel like it has come out of nowhere because I've been praising this game for most of the review, and you know, it's going to sound a bit like a stupid criticism now that I'm thinking about it, but I feel like even though this game is competent in everything it sets out to do, there is no standout element. For example, I've been playing The Altars recently, and the gameplay of that game is a fairly standard survival kind of base management kind of game. But the premise of having all of the people in the base be clones of a single person, all of whom have lived different theoretical lives, therefore have different personalities and outlooks on life, despite all being the same person, is a premise that the game explores in depth and makes for an interesting, unique and absolutely compelling story, and in turn adds an extra dimension to the gameplay that on its own wouldn't have been that interesting. You know, it lifts the rest of the game up. Eternal Die, while competent in almost every aspect, is missing that thing that elevates the entire experience to the next level. And to be honest, if that's the worst thing about this game, then there are many games out there that you could do much worse with. I know that doesn't sound like a huge ringing endorsement, but it's the reason why, despite it being a good game, it's probably not going to be among my top games of the year, despite it being so good. Lost in Random Eternal Die is available now on Steam for around $35 Australian or $20 USD, give or take. It's currently 10% off and on sale until July 11th, and it's also available on Xbox Series S and X, PS5, Steam, Switch 1 and 2, and for a budget title, I recommend picking it up if you are looking for a solidly built roguelite game. Thanks for watching this video. If you have made it this far, then please consider giving it a like and subscribing if you're new. Thanks to my YouTube members Controlled Killer, Yellow, Melodia, and Jingles, absolute legends. And if you think my content is worth supporting, then the option is there as a YouTube member. And while I can't offer much, perks are on the screen if you are interested. There is also a free to enter Discord, as well as my Steam curator page if you want to check out any of those things. Links below in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time with I don't know what. I guess we'll see.